Just keep it flowing.
So actually, one sec. Ah, come on. All right, so what's up, Brian? How are you?
Not too bad, you?
All good, all good. Thanks a million for coming on. I really appreciate it. But you're saying you're looking at the fight. When do you think you might get a fight in?
Hopefully October maybe, but it's hard because it's a lot of local lads going to be fighting, so it's going to be hard to get fights overseas for me. You going to plan on fighting this year?
At the moment, I don't think anything like international level, but we're meant to have the Irish National Championships in November. Personally, I'm not too sure to go ahead, but hopefully it will, and we'll get to have some form of competition.
Yeah, because it's hard to train for something when there's no competitive nature to it. Like you have to, like we compete a lot, so we need something to be able to compete for. Like,
yeah, that's it. Like we were meant to have the European Championships back in April, and when it was first cancelled, I was just like, I didn't want to train at all. Like I know some people were kind of flat out. Yeah, some people were flat out like continue training as if it was, because I suppose nobody. Connection.
Yeah, I fought in March, and then the week later, everything went into motion. Like I fought on the 8th of March, and then like by the 14th of March, pretty much every event was called off, concerts were called off. So
yeah, I fought. I fought on this. I was in London on the Saturday, so I got a competition there. I got a few fights in there, and then it was on the Thursday. Everything got closed down pretty much.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, it really was a shock as well because I just came off my last fight was for WBC International title, so I was just after winning that, and I was ready to get the ball rolling straight away again. I came out of that fight injury free. I was meant to defend my European title in Spain in April as well, so that got called off. But I was ready to let loose,
Yeah, and especially it's always the same after competition, isn't it? Like or after a fight, like that's when you're most amped for the next one. Like you're just mad to go.
Even if you win or lose, I think you have to be willing to take losses too. So even after every loss, I've always been the same. I've always wanted to just get back in and just.
Yeah, because you have the things like you want to work on, like you just want to put it right first. Like if you've lost, you just want to put it right straight away.
Yeah, because you only got a short period of time to do this fighting stuff as well, don't you? Because not everyone gets to do it for the rest of their lives. You only get probably a good 20 years, and it's you might as well make the most of it while you can.
Yeah. Now, how did you get started? Like when did you start? Were you young? Were you in your teens or?
Yeah, I was kind of late into my teens really before I started fighting. I was always into soccer and kind of growing up. So I kind of stopped. I lost interest in football when I was about 14 maybe. I wasn't really going anywhere with it. I was kind of just doing it because every young fella was playing soccer, so it was kind of just a normal thing. It was a hobby. And then a couple of the lads from school were just going Thai boxing for a couple of weeks, so I tagged along with them. And they stayed at it then for about 2 months after, and then I stayed on. I got addicted to. I got the enjoyment out of, I don't know, just being able to hit stuff and stuff like that. Being able to take aggression out on pads and spar and stuff. So I kind of got addicted to that part of it, and then it was about 9 months before I started actually being interested in fighting though, because I was never actually on soccer. I never really knew anything about fighting. I didn't think there was titles. I thought boxing was the only kind of fighting form really.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose as well, like you're kind of brought up, I suppose, as a kid, nearly, you know, fighting is bad kind of a thing, and then you kind of get into it, and you go, actually, when you stick some rules and that onto it, it's actually there's a buzz to
That,
it.
yeah. And it's funny because a lot of people you kind of meet that are involved with fighting and who you get to know are kind of friendly and like every are normal people. So you just go on about their business. Like fighting for us is kind of therapy for us, I suppose you'd call it. It's kind of our escape out of bad stuff, really, for us. You probably experienced it too. Like you, how long have you been fighting?
Oh, I started taekwondo when I was 7, so
Ah, Jesus.
so yeah, long time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How old are you now?
25. So I'm pushing up to the
So you've
20-year
been
mark.
pretty much. Jesus, man, that's some going fair play. Jesus, that's crazy. 20 years nearly, like that's solid. That's hard work. That's a lot of dedication too. Like if you think about it over the years, the sacrifices and stuff. You basically only know fighting, so it's
Yeah, like
cool.
I started kind of on the Irish national team, so I started kind of going to international competitions when I was 15. So I'm about 10 years at that. So
That's
that's a
impressive.
lot, that's a long going as well. I started off when I was like, so I was 15 when I started it, and I was the oldest senior male on the team this time because we've had so much changeover. It's like you went from being the kid to being the oldest, and it goes quick.
Yeah.
Like you said, yeah, like before you know it, you're the kid in the game. Like
That's,
one moment you're the kid in the game, and the next you're a veteran before you know it.
yeah, that's the thing. I in the gym I'm at now. I'm in the same gym. I'm training Siam Warriors like since I started with Martin Horgan and the lads. And over the years, I was the 15-year-old who walked into the gym who never knew anything about fighting, and now I'm there's a lot of lads who are my age, and I have like wealth of experience in them, but that's because I trained with like some of the veterans when I was a young fella. You know, when I was younger, I trained with like Willie Murphy, Darren Cashmans, and to me they're like the older generation of fighters for us. So like seeing how it evolved for me being the kid with them to now being one of the senior fighters in the gym. You know, it's mad. It's a mad transaction.
Yeah, and you don't notice it when it's happening to you. You just kind of have to stop one day and realize, where did everybody else go? Where did all the older guys go?
Yeah, I'm 23 now, like, and there's nobody left really. There's like a handful of us from the old, like from when I first started. You know, it's good though because everyone's close still, even though they don't train. Everybody stays in touch as well.
Yeah, and we'd be fairly similar. Like even just in the club, like the people who would have been there when I started, they're not really there, but like they might pop in now and again for a session and like that. You'd still be close to them and all, but just they're just not in the
Yeah,
sport much anymore.
that's it. But like you, they'd be the ones to reach out to you all the time and stuff as well. You know, you'd hear from them a lot. Like they're the ones who really know you. Like especially because they're older and they see you growing up as a kid. So it's like they have that kind of they disrespect you a little bit as well for sticking up with them. I suppose you know it goes both ways. Like
Yeah, that comes from punching each other in the nose.
I know, like one of my experiences. I was fighting in. I was training for a fight, and I was sparring Willie Murphy, and like he's like my older brother, like, and he kicked me in the face, like, and it was probably one of the worst kicks in the face sparring. But afterwards, like, we were laughing and joking about it. It's just the way it is, isn't it?
Yeah, you get him the next day, and then
Yeah,
it's all even. Like,
that's it. Like it goes both ways, as I said. But it's good to be able to see that, like, because hopefully in a couple of years' time, we're in their position as well for the upcoming fighters too. We can set an example and guide. That's the way it is as well. Like, we have to guide the younger fighters coming up and show them the right way to do it, and just show them what it takes to get to the top, I suppose.
yeah, and hopefully then hopefully they'll actually pass you out. It's kind of, I suppose, what you're hoping for as well to someday. You know, it's
Yeah, that's what you'd want, really, isn't it? You'd want someone to be the best. Like, you want someone to reach their full potential. Like, that's the way it should be.
yeah. Did you have many amateur fights then, or did you go straight? Were you into pro fairly fast?
Um, I went like in Thai boxing. There's like grades as well. There's amateur, which would be shin pads and stuff, and then you would have C class, where it's just bare shin, which is our standard fighting. Like, and then you'd have B class, would be more you'd be low knee in the head, and then you have full Thai rules, which is elbows, knees in the head, pretty much what they do in Thailand. So I started off as an amateur fight in shin pads. I maybe done about 15 amateur fights, maybe 20, maybe something like that, as a junior. From the age of about 15 to 16, I probably racked up about 15 fights, amateur fights. And I was fighting competitive, like I was fighting decent European level. My first fight was against Adam Haslam. He was a European champion. It was my first fight, like, and I lost on a split decision. I went on a 10-fight win streak then. I fought some really good juniors, like, coming up, who are still fighting to this day, who have gone on to do some big things as well. But I started fighting A class when I was 17. It's not really heard of, like, it doesn't really happen all the time in Ireland. So I won an Irish title at 17. I'm probably one of the youngest champions, maybe. But like that, I just kind of worked my way up. Then I've now got over 20 A class, 20 pro fights. Yeah, I've 40 fights, so I think I'm over 20 pro fights now.
Yeah, serious go on really. So like you said, a lot of fights in a short space of time.
Yeah, I was at the start. I was racking up maybe 10 fights a year. Then it was probably like 7 fights, 6 fights a year. Like, then you have injuries and stuff like that as well. And I took a year off from fighting as well. It was a good decision. But like that, it's a year I can't get back and fighting, so just have to make up for it now as well. So I'm planning, like, if I can do 3 to 4 fights every year, even more. Like, it depends on like that injuries and getting cut open and stuff, because I've been sliced open a few times in fights, and you have to wait for them to heal as well, because you can't be risking it straight away afterwards, you know.
Yeah. What made you take a year off?
Just some personal stuff, really. I was after doing kind of a lot of fighting as well. I was probably, I think it was like my 34th fight or something like that, and I was like 20, so I was really young. I was after fighting a Thai legend, Tipia Sitmanchai, Mr. Knock, he's known as. He's 101 knockouts, like, and it doesn't really happen in Ireland. Irish fellas fighting, you know, the Thais, the way, like, it'd be like an American coming over here playing gap. It's like basically fighting the Thais is like fighting the elite levels, you know. So I took the fight against him, and it was a draw. I was hard done, but I think I done enough to win. But like, even just to go that 5 rounds with someone of that magnitude and that level and that experience, because he's known for knocking guys out, and I've seen him coming up. Like, when I started Thai boxing, like, he was a name that, like, always stood out. Like, you know, he was a first name in Thailand. Like, so to fight him was a big achievement for me at 20. So then after that, I was very sore. Like, my body was in bits for about a month after, because it was the toughest fight I had, and I kind of took the foot off the gas. I got a bit lazy, and then just stuff happening. Like, you know, my grandfather died, and that kind of took a knock on me. And then my friend died, and then I wasn't really in the right headspace, so I didn't want to be committing to fighting and not being fully myself. So I didn't want to risk it. So I took a year off. When I came back, then I was actually hungry. I wanted to come back, prove a point. Like, so it was actually probably, it benefited me. No.
Yeah. But like that sometimes, yeah, I suppose like you get so caught up in fighting that like you forget about life outside of it as well to some degree, and you kind of have to go back and maybe focus on those type of things for a bit of time and take some time away from the sport.
Yeah, you have to, 'cause like that, you're young as well, and I work full time as well. Like, so, like, fighting's always been number one. Like, as I get older, like, it's hard to balance a life, fighting, and work. So, like, I have to more than, you know, prior. So I have to act about it now. As I get older, I'll have to be a lot about my decisions. Like.
Yeah. It's mad like you were saying about the Thai fella like with 101 fights, like they're next level, aren't they, with in terms of the amount of fights they rack up.
Yeah, like, I think that was only like, he had 101 knockouts.
Yeah.
Like, most fellas don't even get 100 fights. He had 101 knockouts. Like, and fighting him was like, it'd be like winning the World Cup if I beat him, you know, because you don't really see foreigners beating Thais and someone at that level. I even got to win over him was amazing, but The draw was good. Now I just want to keep proving myself. Like after that, like I want to be able to fight Thais, and I just fought another Thai. He fights regularly, like active in Thailand, like, and he's known for knocking guys out as well. I knocked him out in the second round back in March to claim the WBC title. Like, so that's another goal ticked off the list. You know, fighting like I want a prestigious belt against an elite level fighter. That's something that you need to make sure you do as well. You know, I didn't want to you don't just want to be the nobody's for your belts either. So like be someone who has it to back it, like, is a big thing for me.
Yeah. Have you been to train or fight in Thailand?
No, never. Never. Just always done my fighting over the side of the world, really. I've travelled out to like Japan, and I fought do you know Tenshin?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
He's known
fought
for fighting
Tenshin.
Mayweather, I suppose.
Yeah, well, yeah, he's known for fighting Mayweather, and I'm known for fighting him. So
Yeah,
it's fun. But I fought Tenshin. That just shows like I knew how big Tenshin was, and I was after fighting in Scotland 2 weeks before that, and I was banged up like going into the Tenshin fight, but that one taken away from Tenshin's ability. Like that kid is fire.
yeah. Is he about? Would he be about the same age as you? Because he's pretty young as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he's probably younger than me by maybe like he's probably only 20, 21 maybe. He's a superstar in Japan. Like he's knocking guys out like all the time. He's like he'll be the next superstar from like he'll be a legend in Japan like in the future, you know.
Yeah. Especially now that he's
And
looking.
like and I think fighting Mayweather kind of did him a favor as well. Like obviously that helped him in the bank and stuff. Like you know Jesus, and that boosted him up. Like that gives him a like a big advantage as well. Like on his he can kind of demand what he wants really, because if he's after fighting someone like that, that's a big fight. Like fighting Mayweather, like it's crazy.
Yeah. But like, would you like to go out and fight in the stadiums in Thailand?
And yeah, eventually I do plan on going over some stage and fight in a couple of the stadiums. I'd like to try everything, you know. I want to try and win the big fights, and then at least get one big fight in Thailand, just to be able to say I've done every aspect of the sport, you know. So eventually I will. Yeah.
Yeah, I had Craig Coakley was on the podcast, and he was saying like his goal is to fight for one championship. Would you kind of look to do something similar?
Yeah, well, one championship. I think everybody does kind of looking for one championship, like because for strikers that's the equivalent of UFC, you know. That's the home. That's the home for Thai boxing on that platform. So that's that's something I want to aim for anyway. Hopefully, I can get that chance because there's a couple of fighters in one championship already who I have fought in the past. So that's like Ilyas Mohammadi. He is signed to one. I fought him a couple of years back. Darren Rowland is actually number 3 or 4 in one championship rankings. I just fought him last year. He got signed to one after me. So hopefully, if I just keep doing the right fights and just keep my head down and get the opportunity, I'll take it. Like,
Yeah. So like you said, it's UFC. That's where the big money is for Thai boxing and that type of stuff.
well, yeah, but like everyone says, like money, but realistically, I actually just love fighting because when I started fighting, you never get paid for it. Kind of getting paid is only a bonus. So like the truth about it is, I actually just love fighting. Like I just love getting into scraps and the adrenaline rush of being like slicing people up and then getting caught and the crowd cheering on. That's actually what the real passion is, the fighting part. The money is just a bonus. The money is kind of like the bonus. Actually, that's all it is for me. It's just a bonus.
Yeah. Where would you say has been the best atmosphere that you fought? Like what fight kind of stands out and got like that was the best one?
Neptune Stadium is always the best atmosphere. Have you ever been to a show in Neptune?
I haven't been to a fight night show now, but like we've had
Ah,
taekwondo
man,
competitions there all the time. It's like yeah, I've been there. I know they're kind of
ah,
it's a small enclosed area. Like
the Thai boxing shows, like especially Neptune Stadium. Neptune Stadium is the biggest show in the country. Matt Horgan promotes them. He does the big fights and he puts on the big shows, and the atmosphere at them is electric. Like the crowd goes wild and they respect the sport as well. It's not like just a lot of drunken people showing up making noise. Like the people of Cork actually are interested in Thai boxing, you know. So that's it's a big part as well. A lot of local fighters get a lot of support. So Neptune Stadium is the favourite place to fight for
Yeah.
me. But I fought all over the world. Like I fought in Iraq a couple of years back in Baghdad. There was like 48,000 people at the show, I think, or something like that. Like that's a massive crowd. It was in the National Soccer Stadium as well. So and it was outdoors. It was crazy. That was probably one of my biggest experiences while fighting over there.
It takes on
Yeah,
a crazy journey, doesn't it? You definitely didn't think of that when you walked into the gym at 15. You didn't think that's where you'd end up like.
no, no. It's when you look back at it now, it doesn't even feel like it happened that long ago. Like it feels like it's only yesterday I walked into the gym because I don't really feel the years going by as now. Like, but like that, I never would have thought of it. Like when I started, like I never would have thought I would have been like a world champion. Like you know, you never think of these things until you actually do it, and it's amazing to look back and think of it though.
Yeah. Like you say, have injuries been something that's affected you much? Because I know after one of your fights, you had right side, you had a kind of bad cut on your nose from a knee.
Yeah, yeah. I was lucky enough not to break my nose in that fight. I took a massive. That was Darren Rowland. That was the fight against Darren Rowland. That was my first fight back after a year out as well. Stupid mistake. Like I took a knee in the first round. Gave me 8 stitches across my nose. Put a hole. It actually put a hole in my nose. But I didn't break it. But that was bad. It took me about 3 months to recover. But then I fought Jay Council straight away after that. Like. And he gave me another massive cut on my eyebrow, like 12 stitches or something like that. And then my fight after that, I got another 8 stitches on my face. Like, so it's crazy to be getting that many stitches in a year. Like, so that's why I used to pick the smart fights too.
Yeah.
And or it's not quite mad.
And it's sort of, do you feel, because cuts isn't really something like in Taekwondo that would be a thing, like, so would you feel the cuts then, like that, like would you feel them, or would you just keep going, like is it just something the adrenaline just keeps you going through?
The adrenaline will keep me going. I suppose you know you get caught, you see the blood. But for me, it kind of gives me it gives me a second win. If you cut me, I'm bringing everything. You know that's and everybody knows it's going to be like the was good. Every fight happens, I bring it. Like I bring everything when I get cut. Like so that's why I bring the entertainment for the fight. Like. But you don't think of it at the moment though, because the adrenaline kind of kicks in and you're flowing. But like, it depends on how big the cut is as well. Like, but I just get on with it. Like,
Yeah. Because I suppose if it's not going into the eye, I suppose it's nearly easier to forget about it because you don't have to be wiping the blood out of it and the likes.
I've I've been in a couple of fights. All right, like I've been cut by the eye, and it has taken the vision away a bit. Like, but you just have to get on with it really, because you'll kick yourself if you quit. Afterward, you beat yourself more if you quit than losing. So you there's no point giving up over a cut, I think, unless you have to, unless the doctor or the ref or your team like, decide. But if you feel like you're able to continue, I think you should continue. Like you know.
Yeah. But like do fights get stopped often with cuts then in Thai boxing? Like is it especially because like it happens so often? Like I don't like so it's just part.
It doesn't. Fights don't get stopped really unless it's like blocking the vision of someone, or if the blood is going into the eye too much, or the hole is too big. But I suppose Thai boxing is known for cuts, so that's why it happens, and the refs leave it go so long and they leave the fights go on if there's a cut, because we're trained to work around it as well. We're able to fight, we're able to adapt to being cut. Like if I'm getting cut, like you might be able to go in and clinch up for the whole fight without even getting marked again, you know. So like that's why refs might leave it go on.
Yeah, I suppose there's some tactics that you can play around with it. So yeah. So like when the WBC title, was that something you were pushing for, like, or that was a kind of just an opportunity came around that you had the chance to fight, or where you kind of really was that something like you were looking to move up their ranks and push for the title?
Um, I got ranked in the WBC on the world rankings when I was like 18, 19 at number 17. I went in at number 17. I just kind of climbed my way all the way up. The highest I went before now was 12. That was the highest I got in the rankings. Was number 12. But because in my division, there's a lot of ties. There's like at the moment though, I'm ranked number 10 in the world. So like number 1 to 9 is all ties, and then it's me, and then there's 2 ties underneath me. So I'm in the mix of the top 12 with all ties. So, and then it's all the Europeans underneath me and Westerners. But like there's some really good names in that division, like regardless of positioning. So you get the opportunity, you have to take it, and the WBC thought it was all right. I deserved the shot maybe, like. So I kind of fought everybody I've been asked as well. I've never ever turned down a fight ever. So I think that's kind of goes a long way as well. If Martin asked me to, oh, I've got the fight, yeah. What is it?
Um, but yeah, Jazz, like, so that's kind of it's the WBC. What's it like fighting for them? Like, because obviously they're a big promotion in terms of boxing and a professional organization in boxing. Like, so like, are they professional in Thai boxing then as well?
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same government body, I suppose. It's the same organization. Like it's the same people probably run it. Obviously, there's the Thai boxing side and the boxing side. They're obviously different sports, so there's different aspects of stuff. But like, it's the same thing. Every belt is prestige. Every champion, former champion, like is legit. You know, they're the only belt that really outside of Thailand and one championship that like are renowned as the best. You know, like having a WBC title or like holding a WBC title is something every fighter should try and get because it's the main belt. You know, that's actually what it is, the main belt to hold, and it doesn't happen often. And not every fighter gets the chance either. So you get the chance, you have to really give it your all.
Yeah. And so then what's the kind of set up then situation with defending the belt? Is it kind of like boxing where you get a mandatory and then a voluntary, or like how does it go about
So
defending the belt?
you have to defend it, I suppose. Like I defend it against anybody. I'm not worried about defending it. Like that's what you have to do. That's part of the game. I just have to wait for WBC to make them calls. You know, I wouldn't be going out of my way, like, unless WBC made the choice. Like, it's up to WBC if they want me to defend the belt. Like, I'll be ready to defend the belt. Like, that's the way it works.
Yeah.
So yeah, whoever wants it can come try and take it off me, I suppose.
And there's a lot of ties queuing up for it.
That's my attitude. Like, that's my attitude. Like, so I want to keep it. I've got a world title and I've got a European title. I've defended them, and I'm not worried about defending belts. Like, they're if you want to be the best, you have to fight the best and prove yourself. Like, that's all that matters.
Yeah. Like you mentioned already, like you work full time, and how do you find balancing working with training?
It's tough. I'm not gonna lie and say here like, oh, it's easy. It is tough. There's days like in work where work is really busy, and especially if you don't get enough sleep and you don't eat your food and stuff during the day. Like you're going to not be in the greatest moods going train and stuff. So it's hard to like train and fight full time all the time. You know. So it's like if I know if I know I'm fighting, I put my head down. Everyone will tell you I really get stuck in. I do a 2 months, 3 months training, but I have to know when I'm fighting so that I can be in the gym. Because work is hard. So like if I'm working and just training all the time, like I'm burnt out. My body's in bits. So that's when I'm fighting, I give it everything. I give it a solid training. Like, but I do run a lot, like on my own. I always run. I might not always be doing Thai boxing, but I always run. Running is my comfort zone. You know, I feel my best when I'm running. I do a lot of running on my own, like, so that's my that's my part of me that I like to do, keep running. And when I have to fight, then I give everything to fighting, you know, in the gym. So that's the way it is. It gets harder as you get older too. I suppose. Do you work as well? So like, how do you feel it like?
I teach. I'm a taekwondo instructor. I teach taekwondo and that, so it's kind of I can teach some classes
You
and
kind of,
then train after. It's kind of it works, I suppose. But yeah, I can
that's
imagine.
cool.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, like Thai boxing in this country doesn't have that. We don't have them opportunities. Like it's because like that Thai boxing isn't even that big in Ireland for like to be a full time trainer and do PTs and stuff. We don't have the public, you know, for that. It's
yeah.
hard.
That's what like that's the thing as well. I think it's one thing I suppose about with taekwondo. It's kid friendly. I suppose to some degree. Like it's hard to get 6-7 year olds coming in and like I suppose parents don't really want to be like this because it can look I suppose violent. Like you said, the
Yeah,
cuts, the elbows, the knees,
yeah.
and I don't know. Do parents want to send their kids at 6-7 into that? I don't know. Like they could be fine. You know what I mean? It's just like a perception how it's perceived. I think maybe.
Yeah, it's just an image. Like it's because they see the blood and the violence. People might not everybody thinks it's everybody thinks as well Thai boxers are like big tough guys, and we're not really. Like we're just friendly people. Like this, that's the way it is. But I can get what you're saying about parents saying like they might not want their kids going to Thai boxing because it might be too full on, and they might want to do taekwondo because like it's still a form of martial arts, like and it still has its own disciplines and stuff. But like that, it might be more kid friendly.
Yeah. I think like even that, like there's some parents are looking to send their kids to jiu-jitsu and not taekwondo. It's I think because even that could be seen as you're not punching people in the nose. It's just I
Yeah,
think perception to some martial arts, like even though they're all kind of promoting some with the same qualities, I suppose.
we
Just
all we
you
all
know,
kind of follow the same guidelines, though. Really, like we all respect everyone. We kind of everybody in the gym is there for the same reason. So that's why I think that's why everyone works so well in the gym. I think that's why gyms are so good because everybody that's in the gym is there for the same reason.
yeah. And like, what does your employer think then when you turn up with these 8 stitches across your nose, with the stitches across the eyebrow? What does your employer think?
Um, they laugh at me, to be honest. My bosses think I'm off my game going in doing these fights and stuff. Like I've been working there though. I've been working there last 5 years, so they know the whole. They've known me since I'm 17. Like so, they've seen me fighting all these big fights as well. So they're cool, and they do enough for me as well when I come up to fights, like time off and stuff like that. So it's grand, like.
Yeah, that's what it's good. They know the score. Like you're not turning up one day. Every so often, you just turn up with these stitches, and they're like, were you scrapping it
Yeah.
out to the nightclub? It's like, do you know what I mean? Is that kind of look?
Yeah. And to be fair, like a lot of them, like if I'm fighting in Cork as well, like some people in work will go to the fight and stuff like that as well. So like it's everyone kind of gets the gist of it. Like they'll see me walking around work like limping and busted up, like, and they'll slag me over, like, but they're supporting me too. That's the thing.
It's like I know you said you always like to keep running, but like if you are preparing for a fight, what would your training schedule then look like? Like how many Thai sessions would you get in? Strength and condition sessions, your running sessions? What would it look like?
If I'm training for a fight, I kind of run in the morning times and in the evening time. I run before, I do a small run before work, small run after work, which uh, it helps because like I do like maybe a half an hour run in the mornings and like a half an hour run in the evening. So like it's an hour run in a day and then an hour and a half in the gym. I don't really do a whole lot of strength and conditioning. I do a lot of explosive training though, hill sprints and stuff like that. And then I do long sessions on pads. Like I do maybe a 20-minute like straight through pads. Like I wouldn't take a break. Probably do like a 15-minute, take a break, then do another 10-minute like and then another break. That's the way I do it. Like I do long pad sessions and stuff. I train every day though. If I'm training for fight, like I train 6-7 days and stuff. Like I do actually Thai boxing every day. Then like
Yeah, and how many times a week would do you think you'd spare?
that's just up to the body. Like if your body is able to do it 3 or 4 times a week, you do it. But like if you have a knock on your shin or something like that, you're not going to go sparring. Like so, that just depends on your injuries as well. But like if I'm not injured, we're sparring 3 times a week. We're clinching. We do a couple of clinches during the week, and like I'm lucky enough. There's a couple of lads in the gym my weight, so like it's competitive. Like and Aaron McGahey and Finn Keaton are like 2 of the closest lads to me in my weight class, and I train with them. Like, and they both of them push me like every session, like, and I can't wait to see them like come up as well. Like so that 3 of us can take over and make a name for ourselves.
So do you cut much weight then or anything, or would you be kind of sit fairly on weight?
I got the hang of it after about 30 fights, I'd say. I stay about maybe most 4 kilos overweight. Like now I'm nearly enough on fight weight. My diet's kind of good enough all the time around. I eat well enough, like um. So I kind of stay like 3-4 kilos off fight weight. Come out to a fight, then I'm nearly always on weight. Like I never struggle anymore. Like.
Yeah, so would you have to water load or use like the sauna or anything like that, or do you just diet down? Or
I haven't had to use a sauna for a long time. I just kind of do a diet. I suppose you get to know your own body after a while and stuff. Like I just kind of diet. It's all diet, like, and a bit. I just keep hydrated and stuff. I just do it gradually. Like I drop maybe like a kilo session or like a kilo every day or something. You know, I wouldn't do like 3-4 kilos in like 1 or 2 days. I do it over the course of the week where I'm still able to eat, and then I can not have to worry about cutting it. You know.
yeah, and would it nearly always be? Would it nearly always be then like weigh in the day before you fight, or have you had fights where you've had to weigh in and fight the same day?
Um, Not as much as back in when you're an amateur and when you're a junior. You know, I've always kind of done the day before weigh-ins. It helps.
Yeah.
I don't know what way you do it. Do you do the day weigh-ins or off the day before?
In Ireland, it would be like you'd weigh in the morning, you'd fight afternoon.
Easy.
When you're abroad, if you go to European or World Championships, you'd weigh in on maybe a Wednesday, and you'll fight on Saturday. So you have a couple of days. Just because like there's other events, like you have the more traditional event, like it's a traditional martial arts. You have like the stuff like forms or katas, we call them patterns. You have other stuff like, so that kind of goes on. That can go on the first 1 or 2 days of competition. Like the senior men will fight tends to be on the Saturday, so like that's why everybody weighs in on the one day. But by the time you actually get to compete, it tends to be a Saturday for us. So you get quite a few days of recovering. So
That's
uh,
that's cool.
it,
I wouldn't
it's
mind that. That would help actually.
yeah, I suppose it kind of tends like, so like it had like you would see some guys, especially I suppose on the Irish team, we cut quite a bit of weight because you can get away with it because you have like a couple of days to recover. Like I wouldn't cut as much weight as I do if it was you're going to fight in a couple of hours or you're going to fight just tomorrow. But when you've got 3 or 4 days to recover, it's you're golden. Like
Yeah, Jesus, you're back to your full potential then at that stage. Really, like you've got your sleep back together, you're hydrated, and you're well fed. So like 3 days is pretty much. If you're not ready within 3 days, there's something wrong. Like.
that's it. Like yeah, and because I find sometimes the day before the night before the weigh-in, you tend to not like if you've cut a bit of weight, you don't really sleep. You have dry mouth and stuff, and like
Yeah.
the next night you're only kind of catching up on that sleep. So like you're not fully rested. You know what I mean? So like that's why if you were to fight that day, so like when you have like the next couple of days, it's like you're getting fully rested in that. Like you know.
Yeah. And the day of the weigh-in as well, like if you weigh in the day before, you're always kind of like too excited to like rest. Like if the day of the weigh-in, like I'm always like I go shopping or like I have to do something. Like I can't just sit at home and think about the fight. So I have to like go to the cinema or I have to go out eating or I have to keep myself occupied the day before the weigh-in. Like so,
Yeah,
like you're kind of burning more energy, but it's hard to sit at home and think about the fight too.
yeah, because kind of that last thing, isn't it? It's like, well, you know, like if you've both made weight, you know, right? Well, it's definitely on. No, it's on. It's tomorrow. So there's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like that. You start like you nearly want to go then, like you know. So you have to pull it, like you said, you like to occupy your mind and pull yourself back a bit.
I hate I hate 5 minutes before the fight. That's the worst part of the whole process. Like 5 minutes before the fight, that's the worst process. That's the worst part of the whole training camp for me. That 5 minutes before you have to go into the ring. That's the hardest part for me.
Yeah, you just start
I
having.
get so nervous. I
Was
have
that,
to like be in a room. I have to like tell my friends. I used to tell everyone like I need a minute there on my own. Like I need to be on my own there for a few minutes. Like I have to stand in a room on my own, like to try and like comprehend everything.
yeah. Do you start out and then like you start having the conversation of why did I sign up for this? Like I could be doing, I don't have to, I could be sitting in the crowd if I really decided, but then you get in there and then it's kind of like, well, I'm here now, I suppose, so I better crack on.
Yeah, that happened. That actually happened in my last fight. I was fighting. I was fighting the Thai, and I was up in the dressing room with Aaron McGahey like 5 minutes before the fight, and I was like, "What am I doing?" Like I was like, "I'm fighting the Thai. I could have fought anybody else, Aaron. We picked the Thai." And all he kept saying to me was like, "You're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. You trained hard for it. Like you trained hard for it." And Aaron and me kind of went over a lot of drills coming up to the fight. Like like maybe closer to the fight, like maybe 2 weeks out from the fight, we started going over little techniques and just movements and stuff like that. And he can tell you this, like we actually practiced that move. We drilled it. It was like so right after the fight, we were like, we practiced it for ages. That combination, like that whole movement we practiced and I executed it that day. Like it was like my timing was on. But it was only for him being like, you can do it, like you have it. Like 5 minutes before that, like he believed in me, like he was like telling me in my ear, like you have it, you have it. Like so walking out to the fight, I was like, all right, I can do it. 5 minutes before that, I was like, nah, I can't do this. Like, this is, what am I doing? Like, I'm doing the wrong thing here. Like, I doubt myself for 5 minutes. It's part of the process, but it's good. Nerves are good, though.
Yeah. I think I try to remind myself that everybody's breaking it. You know, everybody's
Yeah.
shitting it, and the best people then it's how you deal with it.
And it's like, anybody who tells you they don't get nervous before a fight is lying. Lying.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I don't care, like, because there's always, like, there's a big crowd. There's always a chance you might get knocked out. Like, you don't, like, you're always thinking of the negative things as well, too. Like, so you have to like block them out when you're actually in the ring.
Yeah. Do you find listening to music or anything like that in the dressing room? Would you be someone to listen to music and that to help keep you focused or get in the zone?
Nah, I'd have my headphones on, I suppose, but I'm too much of a shit talker, to be honest. I'd
Yeah.
be flying around the place like talking to everyone. Like my trainer kills me for it. Like he's like, "You ever relax? Just go to sleep there for a while." And I'm like up, like starting conversations with people. Like it's like that's how I cope with a fight. That's how I kind of get in the zone, just by chatting to people and not sitting there like listening to music, thinking about it. Because I'd only doubt myself even more if I do that. Like
Yeah, that distraction. I think it's mad like that. Yeah, you just see some people like that, like you, they'll talk around to keep themselves occupied, distracted. Other people can nearly go to sleep because sleeping is distract. Like if I'm sleeping, I'm not thinking about it. Everybody has their own thing that gets them ready and keeps them calm.
I'd be afraid to go to sleep and then wake up and be like, nah, I'm not doing this. That's probably I would be afraid to get up. I'd want to stay asleep. Like I don't know. I've never tried to go to sleep before a fight, to be honest.
Yeah, I wouldn't be like a couple of hours. See the way it is, like they could call your division and go like, oh, the senior male minus 57 are starting on this ring, and I'd be afraid I'd be asleep and miss that. So it's like I like to be somebody like in just in the gear. Don't really ready to go. It's like
Yeah,
not doing a whole lot. I'm
be
just
prepared.
floating about. But if they call you to go in the next 2 minutes, would you be ready to go?
Yeah,
Right, I could just grab my shit and go. But yeah, I would be. I'd be afraid. I'd be afraid to sleep. Like
especially like I like when there's loads of people in the dressing room as well. Like especially like if we're fighting a Neptune, like all the lads from the gym will be there, so it's a good crack in the gym. Like people are being slagged, so you don't actually think about the fight till it's time to go in. Especially when you're fighting home, at the home shows, like if you're in the dressing room with all the lads, because there's always someone in the gym fighting before you. So like they're coming in, if they won, you're like, oh, well done, and then it's like everybody's happy, so you want to keep that momentum high. Even if someone loses, like everyone comes in, and when someone loses from the gym, like we're all still there for each other too. There's still the crack, like everyone's spirits still high. But if you're not there and there's no atmosphere in the dressing room, like, and you're just thinking about the fight, like it gets harder. It's going to be harder for you to be confident in there, you know.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. The more you think about it, definitely the more chance you have of the doubts starting to creep in. If you just think, like, if you just distract yourself with thinking about the fight at all, then the bad thoughts can't get in. Like, you know, the negative thoughts can't get in.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's kind of that's great. Like, it's cool like that. You have like your own dressing room for the gym. Like, I like sometimes for taekwondo, especially at the like international, like you have like a warm up area, so you could be warming up next to the guys you're going to fight. And I always find like that's an interesting. There's a buzz to that as well. Like everybody's warming up like in a small little space close to each other, and you kind of see that you can tell a little bit like the guys who are breaking it sometimes, you know. And I like to go out there sometimes, even the days I'm not competing, and you see the ones who are pumped, you see the ones who are breaking it, you see the ones who are like they're nearly putting in a training session because they're doubting themselves and they're trying to make up for how they were training. They're trying to make up for it in the warm up. It's like if I warm up so hard and hit the pad, like I'm going to be ready, but it's like, well, you know, that doesn't make a difference.
They're over there doing like 50 push-ups and like 50 sit-ups and stuff. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah. It's right, like it's a workout. Like, oh, you just want to be warm.
I've seen them myself. I've seen people do it as well. I've seen people actually burn themselves out like before they go in.
Yeah. But and you just know like what it is when you see it, because you're just doubting yourself there. You just want to get the biggest. What if I'm so warmed up, I'm going to be so ready to go, but it's probably doing more harm than good really to your performance.
Yeah, you're burning your energy, like definitely. If you're over there and you're doing like a big warm up, say 20 minutes before your fight, you're going to be trying to catch your second wind for the fight. It's all right. I doing a bit of shadow boxing, maybe hitting a small bit of pads or something, but doing like big savage workouts before fights is stupid. Like, I don't know, maybe there's a method behind it. Like, I don't know, wouldn't be one for me.
Yeah, I wouldn't be like, yeah, I wouldn't be one for a big warm up. Just once I start feeling that little sweat, it's like, right, we're good to go now.
Yeah, definitely. Once you feel a bit loose and stretched out, like I think once you're stretched out and warmed up, you're definitely ready to go. Like, you don't have to do a workout to prepare yourself for the fight. Like, your training should have made up for the fight, and your whole training camp should make up for that moment. Like, you know.
Yeah. So like then, um, you were saying like maybe October. Like when is that when shows are kind of talking about coming back? Like when are?
I know there's a show in Belfast. Like, I'm not sure what date, but there's a show in Belfast, so like, it's good to see that. That's one show announced, and I know my trainer Martin Horgan has a show planned for October as well. But then again, this just comes down to COVID-19, really, doesn't it? Like, like how big groups we can have in places. So it's really we all have our fingers crossed, don't we? So until guidelines are put in place and stuff, we can't really make there can't be any shows going ahead, I suppose.
Yeah, it's just like that's what I was going to ask. Like, do you think they'll be behind kind of closed doors, or what do you think would happen for those shows?
I don't know. I can't really say on it because it'd be hard to do a fight behind closed doors. You know, you'd need the atmosphere from the crowd. You need the support. You need the cheering. You'd need that like ringing in your ear. Like, I think it'd be hard to do that with nobody in a room.
Yeah, even that though, the financial like side of trying to run a show with no crowd, I don't think it's kind of. I don't think that'd be really too viable, would it?
It'd be very hard, like especially for like somebody like the local shows like that, because local shows depend on the crowd and the audience to come, like, you know. So like we generally we rely on ticket sales and stuff, you know, like because Thai boxing doesn't have big huge TV contracts and stuff like this. So all the Thai boxing shows in Ireland, they rely on ticket sales. So it has to be like we need the crowd. You know, you need the crowd in certain events. Same with like MMA shows and probably boxing events, certain boxing shows and stuff like. And probably like to taekwondo events, like you probably need some sort of like you'd have spectators too, wouldn't you? Like, would they be left in, and would you feel comfortable without spectators? You know.
Yeah, see, most of those are like it's like a day competition. You'd have 3 or 4 fights on the day. It's more of a competition format than fight night, but still, like to run those tournaments, like we need people to enter the tournaments, and people
Yeah.
at the moment mightn't enter. You know what I mean? Because they're going, well, because so many people are in one hall at the same time. People might turn around and go, well, I don't want to be in a crowd with 500, 800 people, so I'm not going to enter the tournament. I'm going to stay at home. And then obviously,
Yeah, people are going to be cautious about it. Like,
yeah,
people are going to be very cautious about going to big venues with big crowds, especially going to like concerts and stuff as well. Like, so that's just down to the individual as well, if they're committed to going to shows as well. Again, government have to make the guidelines really. Like, we can't really promise people anything.
yeah. I suppose you can only really try and prepare that you're maybe going to be fighting, to like keep it like prepare as if there's going to be shows and going to be fights, but who
But
knows?
like, I know it's good to see like UFC and One Championship. They're still doing shows like that. Just shows like they're pushing it. You know, they're helping. Right, the One Championship have shows coming back in Thailand in, I think it's next week on the 31st, and they have a big show in Bangkok. Like, so that's it's a first step, I suppose, in the right direction for more shows. So like, if that will be a success, that show, and then that'll just show like how they'll be able to plan every other show then eventually after the first one, you know. And I think then shows will be able to follow that guideline from them shows.
Yeah, definitely. But do you think, like, I know, like, obviously One Championship, but would you consider maybe fighting in something like Glory Kickboxing? Obviously the rule set's a little bit different, but would you consider fighting in something like that?
I wouldn't shy away from it. I have done one or two K1 fights over time. Like, I fought one or two. Like, I fought Tenshin K1. Like, that wasn't even Thai rules. That was K1. I fought Jamie Whelan K1. I've done a couple of K1 fights, so it wouldn't be too far out of my comfort zone. So I wouldn't say no to it. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Because it's not too much different. Obviously, it's kickboxing, but it's another, I suppose,
faster,
decent
it's just a
promotion.
faster paced fight. It's a faster paced fight, and I suppose there's no clinch as such. And again, taking away the elbows from people who are used to throwing elbows that's a big advantage for the opposition too.
Yeah. It's funny you say that about the pace of the fight, because I was like that. When I was talking to Craig Coakley, and it's like you see a lot of the Thais, they take the first cut, like the first round off and the last round off, and they fight in the middle. Like, it's like that's where the fight is won and lost, is in those middle rounds. And it's like the first one's feeling out, the second one is, the last one is don't get hurt because we want to fight again next week, and the middle rounds is where it's won.
Yeah, so I always try to explain like to my friends, because they don't really know Thai boxing at all, like as much, but they know UFC and stuff like that. Where UFC is like guys rushing in and getting bashed up and taking fellas to the floor. Like, where Thai boxing is, it's 5 rounds, and in Thailand, the elite Thais are so good at like point scoring and picking shots. So like, take me out of the question, and if you watch like someone like Sanchez level, like the Thais like that, or Liam Harrison or Jordan Watson, and them, like, they're some of the best fighters in the world. And when you watch them fight and being able to like score big points in fights and make it look so good over 5 rounds without it being like a scrappy fight, that's why Thai boxing stands aside from like MMA and boxing and stuff, because it's beautiful to watch if you watch the elites, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
It's just the way like the Thais are so good at it, like their timing for stuff. I always put on like some of the Thai fights on YouTube and stuff just to watch them, like, and show my friends like the highlights and stuff, like all the knockouts, spinning elbows and shit like that, because you don't really see that stuff in MMA and stuff. So it'd be nice to like see Thai boxing get that publicity, like, for what it truly is. Maybe I'm biased too, that I just love fighting, stand-up fighting.
yeah. No, I definitely, like, I do, like, I do like, I enjoy sometimes going onto YouTube and watching some of the Thai stuff. Um, it can be, but I think sometimes I can be a bit, I like someone like myself, like, who isn't maybe necessarily in it. I think some people maybe might be the same, is that when you see some of the clinch work, you don't maybe necessarily fully understand what you're watching. Whereas I think, someone who maybe like that, who's involved in it and maybe trains in that, like it can understand what's happening in the clinch and who's winning and that type of stuff.
Yeah. That's it. Like when we go to, like me and the lads in the gym go to shows around the country and we see, like, because we'd have an idea of how to score fights and like judge fights and stuff. So like we're watching it from like a fan's perspective. We're like, oh, that's a big score. Like we're cheering on, like even though like it mightn't be someone in our gym, if they land a big score, we're like, oh, that's a big score, like because we're programmed, we know how it works. But we're like someone who just wants to see two guys thumping the head off each other for 5 rounds. You know, that's just the way they look at it. So to anybody who actually knows about Thai boxing, they'll understand how the form and how good it is, you know, to watch and the interest in it. Like,
yeah, that always helps if you know what you're looking at. Like, I suppose the same with any sport. I mean, you know what you're looking at, like it makes it much more enjoyable.
yeah, definitely.
But I suppose just before we finish up, really, I ask kind of everybody, if you had to pick a favorite fighter, who would you pick? Doesn't necessarily have to be a Thai fighter. It could be, I suppose, a boxer. It could be an MMA fighter. It could be any fighter in any sport. But if you had to pick a favorite, who would you pick?
Pornsney, Sitmanchai. Yeah. My all-time favorite fighter would be Pornsney, Sitmanchai, probably. Thai boxing wise. Boxing, Roy Jones Jr.
Nice. Yeah, very good. He hasn't been said yet, but definitely a solid choice. I was only watching some of his highlights about 2 weeks ago, and he was unbelievable.
He was brilliant. I love him. One of the greatest boxers of all time, I think. Definitely.
Yeah. Sometimes gets forgotten about, especially when I think sometimes, you know, when people say like, oh, Floyd Mayweather was the best boxer since Sugar Ray Leonard, I often kind of go, well, what about Roy Jones Jr. in there in the middle? It's like, he was unbelievable.
Yeah. He loved the fight. he loved to fight. Like all his fights were exciting. So that's why he was good to watch, and he was an entertainer as well. Like, so he had everything. He was a package.
Yeah. So a solid choice there. Like I said, you're the first person to say him, so that's good.
Yeah, everybody. Anytime I would say that, like people are like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, that'd be my choice of boxer." Like,
yeah. But so I think we'll leave it there. We'll wrap it up. It's thanks a million for coming on. Really appreciate it. I've enjoyed the chat.
Jesus, it's been a pleasure, man. Jesus, it's been a pleasure. Thanks.
Yeah, and I like all the best. Hopefully, you will get to fight in October, and you'll get out sometime this year.
We all get back to business and get back to doing what we do normally. I suppose have to wait and see.
Yeah.
We'll say a prayer.
Yeah. So take care, man. All the best.
All the best. Thank you. Cheers.